Grim Jim, as well as everyone else confused by my game. So I got this at today, and as you can tell, there's a lot of questions on it. These are actually pretty common for new GMs. Generally, you have like this gulf between reading a text as an RPG runner and then trying to actually run it, where you're like, wait, how does this connect? And once those are made apparent, it's a little bit easier. But some of this stuff is kind of tricky. So I I want to address these guys, but I want to make sure I'm highlighting exactly how this game works prior to doing that. So in most games, D&D, etc., it's a very binary question based kind of system. The question is like, can I perform the skill? Does my attack it? That kind of thing. And so you roll a single die, and then you add modifiers to it and compare it to a target number. And if you're equal to or over, then you do the thing, and if you're below, then you don't do the thing. So it's a very binary system. The dice there are kind of designed to give you a moment of drama whenever you pick it up and roll it to see if the thing happens. This is a resource-based game. It's based on the one roll engine, like kind of as a grandfather style of game. But instead of it being a pass-fail type system, it's more of a here's a bunch of different options that you have based on the circumstances of this particular moment when you're trying this. So it's a very different kind of approach to role playing, or at least into the decision making of role playing. You rarely have a does this work or not. You frequently have a do I have the resources to make this work or not. So represented here are these little dice, and I just pre-rolled these for ease. Is an effort pool. It's D10s, you roll them, and you try to match sets. So in this case, you've got an 8, a 9, 3 different 4s, and a 10. Note that it's a 10 here. It might be a 0 on some dice. You're always going to read that as 0. So the facing of the dice themselves are the one column of whatever action you want to take, and then the amount of dice you group together, the set, is the rank or the tens column. So rank equals tens column. So that's really important to know. That's one of the questions you have here. In techniques, what is the rank rating for? Well, that'll become apparent in a moment. When you do any action, and there's only a couple different kinds of actions in most role-playing games. Attack, defend, do a skill. Same thing here. You can attack, defend, or do a skill with dice. So when you're taking actions in my game, you have a pool of effort dice that sits around for a period of time. For the most part, you'll be rolling these in combat. Generally, out of combat, you can kind of run this as an almost diceless system. Very rarely do you really need to roll all of your effort to make something happen. But in the occasion that you do, they'll last until your next action. So you can do more than one thing in an action. Again, a lot of times role-playing games are, I do this one thing, and then I wait for my next turn. In this game, you can do flurries of actions. It's a kung fu game, so you can do a whole bunch of stuff, and yeah, so that's how that works. So in this case, let's just say this is you rolling your effort at the very beginning of a combat round to see what kind of attacks you can throw, and you wanna mess somebody's world up. So you've got a lot of options here. You can do a single action with one die during your turn, and you can do as many actions as you want that have 2 or more dice in them. So, like for example, if you got these 3 4s here and you've got this 9, you could throw a punch with this 9. This one die, so it's a 19, so it's 10's column is how many dice is in there, and then you could throw a punch or throw like a kick maybe with these 4s, so it'd be 34. There's 3 dice, so that's the 3's column. The rank is 3, facing is 4, so 34 would be your kick. And you can do both of those things. You would then be out of actions. You'd still have these 2 dice held back in reserve for defense. If someone attacks you, you could use them to defend yourself, which is useful. Get an 18 and a pretty pathetic 10, unfortunately. But still, it's better to have a 10 than nothing. So that's how you should think about dice whenever putting them together. So when you're attacking and defending, it really is, it's just like most games, it's just the attack total versus the defense total. So if I attacked you with a 34 and you only had like an 8 to defend with, well, they'd be like an 18. So 34 minus 18. And then the difference is the damage you'd have to deal with. When you want to do a skill, though, you compare just the rank. You don't worry about the actual total, just the rank, to the effect chart for the skill. So let's say you wanted to do like a power attack here, or a power effect here, and you're like, I want to lift something really heavy. What can I lift? Well, you've got a rank 3 action if you want to use your 3 4s here. It's 34, so you just pop on over here. and you check out rank 3. It looks like I can deadlift 1,000 pounds. I'll give you some examples, like a grand piano or a cow. If there's a nearby handy cow, you can hurl it at somebody. Boom. Easy to do. So that's the basics of the system. So the first thing you talk about is the chakras here, awakened chakras. You start with these. What do you do? How do you open it? How do these things work? Is your basic question here. Got weapons of the gods up as well. Okay, so let's talk about those for a second. So you have 7 chakra, and that's not because I decided on that. That just happens to be how ancient Taoist alchemy works. But you have 7 total you can open up. You have perfect mastery only over a very small amount of those. Those are your initial chakra. Initial chakra give you their pool whenever you're outside of combat or at the beginning of combat. So you're just walking around and you've got 3 prana to spend. They once you spend prana in a non-combat scene, by your next action, they've all totally recovered, and they don't cause any kind of like violent, explosive energy output. Like a lot of times, you'll see like anime characters like powering up, and there's arcs of energy flying off of them. None of that. This is all very subtle stuff. You know, like you might be doing something superhuman, like lifting up a cow and throwing it, but it doesn't. You don't look magical doing it beyond just like, you know, lifting up a cow. So you're not like sparking with energy and drawing much attention to yourself. You're just quietly, you know, surreptitiously hurling a cow through space. Super, super sneaky. So the recovery is what happens when you're fighting. When you're in the danger of combat, your chakra, like, they basically double. And so at the end of a combat round, you get recovery equal to your recovery stat per chakra. So the initial chakra is 1, so you wind up getting 6. Now, when you open new chakra, and you can do that in 2 circumstances, those also give you their recovery. Generally, any chakra that you open after the first is just going to be giving you the recovery stat. So outside of combat, if you decide that you're going to start getting way more power, you can just kind of decide and you start glowing with power, doing something called a prana flare, and instead of getting 3 prana, you'll suddenly have 6. And then every couple of seconds, every action, you'll pop open another chakra, and it'll add 6 more to that total. So you start off with 6 you can spend, then that refreshes by your next action, and then you're going to add 6 more to it with your second chakra that's open, so you get 12 to spend. That refreshes entirely by your next action. And this stuff is additive. So, like, if you're not spending prana and you're just sitting there like Goku charging, you get 6 in your first round, 12 in your second round, 18 in your third round. You add all those together. So what is that? 6 plus 12 is 18 plus 18, that's 36. So yeah, but the third action, you'd have 36 prana banked. The total amount of prana the human form can hold, period, is 100. Once you get to 100, that's it. All excess prana is just blazed off, you know. But that's how that works out of combat. In combat, it is assumed you are doing that. But remember, combat is a much more tight framework. Instead of happening, you know, over the course of several minutes, it happens in the blink of an eye. So every combat round is like maybe 15, 20 seconds. It's super condensed. So because it's happening at such a rate, the rate that your prana comes back is a little more structured. At the beginning of a combat, you only have your initial chakra times your pool. So if you happen to be an enlightened hero where you have 2 initial chakra and you have a pool of 3 with each one, you would have 6 you could spend at the beginning of the round. Most other heroes, strong heroes, for example, would only have 3 they could spend at the beginning of the round. At the end of the combat round, 2 things happen. Number 1, you prana flare and you open another chakra. So you'll go from 1 to 2 or from 2 to 3 with most starting characters, right? And you add to your prana pool, whatever you haven't spent, you add to your prana pool 6, which is the recovery, times the newly opened chakra. So most people will get 12 additional prana at the end of that first round, enlightened heroes will get 18. And that happens every single round. The other circumstance which you can open a chakra is you can take a rank 2 spirit action. It's just one of the things you can do. So you take a rank 2 spirit action, you can open another one. This is a way to get more prana faster. If you decide to do that during the earlier rounds, you'll simply have more prana open. Now, you'll note that your recovery is 6 whenever you are a low degree hero, so right degree 1, degree 2, it's usually 6. And it goes up as you become a more powerful hero. In other words, you're able to draw more magical energy, more prana out of your chakra. So at degree 4, you have people recovering 8 per open prana, per open chakra. So that's a lot to absorb, but to give you an example, you have a powerful degree 4 hero. They have 3 initial chakra, so they're going to start with 3 times this pool of 4, so 12 prana that they can spend at the beginning of a combat round. But by the end of that first round, they're going to have 4 open chakra because they're prana flaring, and each one is going to give them an 8 for its recovery. So that's 32 additional prana they will have to start out in round 2. That's a huge spike in power, just in case. And you'll notice that reflected in the techniques where everything beyond about expert level is enormously expensive. This is because some of these powers, if used one time, will decidedly end a combat. So I wanted to make certain that they only happened rarely, or whenever you were doing everything you could to make them happen. So that's how those work. A little wordy and complicated. My apologies. Yeah, so you start with one of these, you still have to open it? No. You start with one, and the pool is how much prana it just kind of hands to you. That doesn't require any additional work. Awakened ones give double prana. Effectively, yeah. It's not hard and fast. I think that the actual result of how I did it was doubled in all cases. And let's see here. Yeah, it's doubled in all cases in the core book. I wanted to leave myself the option to monkey with that, but yeah, effectively it just doubles it. This just happens when you're fighting, or when you're prana flaring. So anytime that you decide to power up, that's what it looks like. Let's see here. Are you guys seeing this too? Okay, yeah, I want to make sure. So one open awakened chakra and one open normal chakra would yield 9 prana turn. No. Okay, so your prana, as soon as the fight starts, just start going to recovery. The only thing that pool is useful for is just the initial prana you come into the fight with. That's it. So at the end of round 1, you're going to open 1 additional chakra. You're going to get 12 prana back. You're just looking at the recovery as soon as combat starts. The only thing you want pool for is out of combat. You want to know how much magic they can use more or less effortlessly. That's what pool is for. And you also kind of want to have an idea for how long it takes them in terms of actions to get a certain amount of prana. Because remember, when they're prana flaring, you're rolling to see if something shows up to kill them. You're rolling on the volatility dice. So the design intent of that is that it makes them very obvious, and it kind of bends fate towards screwing with them. So, normal attacks. Okay, so this is the next one. Some techniques have a cost, but all they do is provide for a normal attack you could make anyway. So I want to explain what techniques do, because now that you kind of have an idea of how the base system works, it'll make a lot more sense how techniques work. Now, I think the one you said was, let me see. Yeah, here it is, Burning Piston Strike. Okay, so Burning Piston Strike. What a technique does is whenever you pay the cost in prana, so this is only 2 prana, this is easy to do, you get a die or several die that have a range of different facings of your choice. So, for example, with Burning Piston Strike, let's say you're like, okay, I've blown my wad and I used these 4s already, but let's actually get ourselves another low die here. Come on, give me something crappy. Nope. No. Okay, I was kind of rolling hot there for a minute. Let's say I use these 3 4s, and those are all gone. I used them all up. I used a really cool roundhouse and kicked someone right in the throat, but I got another bad guy I got to deal with here. And you're like, okay, well, I could throw this crummy rank 1 at him, or if I use Burning Piston Strike, if I did that, I could purchase effectively another die. And you'll note that you can kind of freely combine dice. So let's say, okay, I want to punch him with my little 1 here, or even with my 0 there. I didn't really necessarily have to roll more. But let's say that I want to increase that. Well, I can increase this by 1 rank, effectively buying another die of a facing of 1, because that's within the facing range. I can do a die facing 0, a die facing 1, a die facing 2, or a die facing 3. I choose to purchase for 2 prana a die facing 1, and increase my attack here. So it's, instead of it being a 1, it's now a 21, effectively increasing it by purchasing 1 rank. So that's what that does. You just buy more dice. A more powerful effect, like say this one right here, the Fire Discipline motion, lets you purchase. Actually, this is Atomic Dragon Mudra. Yeah, Atomic Dragon Mudra lets you purchase a rank 3. So that's the same thing as purchasing 3 dice. So rather than just increasing this to by 1 rank to rank 2, I could increase it by 3 ranks to rank 4 total. I can also, because, I mean, rank 3 is really, really high, that's a bonus action. So if I just want to do this on its own and breathe fire, I totally can. Or if I want to breathe fire a little better, I can increase it up to a rank 4 and make a rank 4 attack. So that's how that works. You simply purchase additional dice effectively, and the number of dice that you purchase is equal to this, and they're all going to share the same rank, or the same facing. The facing has to be within the facing range of the technique. So one of the balances on more powerful techniques is often that they have a lower facing range, so they don't give you as powerful of an effect. And most of the offensive ones have a moderate to high facing range, so that they can be really useful. Some of them are really weird. Skullcrack Surprise here, you roll a d10 to determine the facing, so you're not really sure what you're going to get. So if I was like, I'm going to Skullcrack Surprise because it only cost me 1 prana. I have an extra prana. Let's see what happens. That's not what I should have done. Oh, well, it's another 1. Well, that would have been very useful then. I could have paired that with my other 1 and gotten a pretty impressive rank 2, and it only cost me half as much as the Burning Piston Strike. So, yeah, basically, rank is purchase dice. Facing is what the number on those dice is. And you can combine those more or less freely with anything. Now, you'll note that certain techniques are only attacks, certain are only defenses, and some are mudra. So a mudra is like a magic effect that'll explain what it does here. So it's basically like casting a spell. And then finally, there are some that are balanced. I don't think they have any in this style, I guess. But balanced techniques can be used for offense or defense. So those are the 4 different kinds. You can techniques that only improve attacks, techniques that improve defenses, techniques that can do either, or techniques that are of their own magical effect. Another thing you'll notice in these is the skill. So in addition to using this as an attack, you can use it to empower a skill. So if I'm like, wait a minute, I actually just need to get the hell out of here. So instead of doing that, I'm going to buy a facing 1 die and increase an agility action with it. So it's like, okay, well, I've got a facing 1 die here. So that'll take that from an 11 to a 21 or a rank 2. And that really matters when it comes to agility, because the difference between rank 1 agility is like running at 12 miles an hour, whereas rank 2 is running at 28 miles an hour. They can definitely run a lot faster, a lot further, by using Burning Piston Strike to increase your agility. So that's another alternative thing they can do. They don't do both at the same time. For some reason, people have a lot of trouble with that, but it's an alternative use of a technique. And so skills give you an alternative use of technique that boosts a skill. Okay, so are these additional attacks you can evoke with prana and the effort die or without effort? Okay, I think that answers this one. Let's see. Facing. It can be coupled with effort. You can do it as an additional strike. Remember, you only get to attack with a single die once a turn. So if you haven't done that yet, you can use Burning Piston Strike to get another attack if you're willing to buy those dice. But just think about it like buying dice, and it kind of clarifies things. Rank is how many dice? We answered that one. The effect just describes the parameters of how the technique works. Some of them are just, it makes an attack happen. Some of them are a little more elaborate, like they let you like summon and control fire, but they'll usually describe themselves pretty well. And I used a lot of very natural language in it. So generally what you intuitively think a technique would do, it does do. Okay. We talked about the ranks, so we got that. The last thing you've got here is, do you have a nifty method for converting cost powers to Million Styles Manual? Unfortunately, no. I was looking up Weapons of the Gods, I think is the origin of the Million Styles Manual. And although I did use this a lot, when I was, here, God of Wind Kick is a good example. Like this technique, where is that one? Yeah, Divine Warrior Stepping Stone Skull Kick. I actually did a version of this for my game. Let me pull that up real quick. So that very thing is Path of the Bullet. Where are you, buddy? It's after 5 gateways. It's in Divine Breath. Where is it? Yes, Stepping Stone Skullcrusher Kick is my version of that. So okay, so unfortunately, their costing mechanism is way different than mine. You'll note that like it never gets higher than 4 with them. 4 chi in Weapons of the Gods is an enormous amount that you rarely get, especially the same color. And in my game, there's only one kind of prana, so you don't have to worry about like matching different kinds of colors of chi or anything like that. Um, but as a corollary to that, the costs are much higher to balance out when you have access to it. So this is this is one for one. I was inspired by this image and this technique to make this technique for my game. And as you can see, there's an enormous volume of difference between it. Like, this is a much lower cost. It's a particular kind of chi, so even just like structurally, that's very different. It does do the same thing. Yeah, you hop from head to head and smash people's skulls, which is hilarious. But the way it does it works within the milieu of how this game functions. And then mine has a really different way it works. Um, yeah, like you can wobble between people. I also use the term motherfuckers in it, which is pretty funny, I think. It also actually does happen to have the same kind of thing where if you're hitting groups of like foes, minions is what they call them. I think followers is what I call them, but yeah, it gives you a big boon, a big bonus, a big boost, a big bonus. So unfortunately, I don't have a nifty way of converting between them cleanly. The systems are just too different. Um, you can a lot of times you won't need to convert because I will have done that conversion for you. So if you look through the different styles in Legends of the Woolen or Weapons of the Gods, you'll very likely find the RNA for techniques that you'll also find in my game. So if you have particular ones that you're interested in, just DM them to me or even post them, and I'll tell you if I have an equivalent. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And if I don't, it's not super. Since I made this game, it's not super difficult for me to like kind of design one that does what it needs to do. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, there's not a clean conversion just because I had to depart so much from the previous games. Okay, I think that's it. I think I answered all of them. And we are. I was streaming. That's interesting. But I'm also recording, so that should be less than. Hopefully, that's less than 10 minutes. How long are we at? Does it say 23 minutes? Oh, Lord in heaven. Okay. Well, anyway, I hope that thoroughly answers your questions. Talk to you guys later.